The season of health is on. Cruise through HTX. And what impact can a holistic fitness approach have on your life? Heather Sholl is the owner of the Villages Gym in the Memorial area, and during this episode, she joins me to talk about the benefits of medical fitness. You're also going to discover the role of nutrition in achieving wellness goals. You're also going to gain tactical tips on starting and progressing in your fitness journey. And if you enjoyed this episode with Heather as much as I did putting it together for you, please consider sharing and subscribing to the show from my website at cruisethroughhtx.com. And last of all, please talk to your primary care physician before trying anything you hear during any of the episodes on this season of Cruise Through HTX. Heather, I'm a 49-year-old male. What am I doing wrong about my exercise routine if I'm doing 3 to 4 times a week?
I'd have to know a lot more about what you're doing to know what you're doing wrong.
Okay, running between 3 and 4 miles and only lifting weights whenever I feel like it because I hate pain.
Okay, how often do you lift weights?
Okay, maybe 4 times a month. I'm getting better at that.
What are your goals? Tell me what you want to do right that's not working, and then I can maybe get you in the right direction.
I want to look like Hondo from SWAT.
Okay, I actually know what that is. My kids are really taken to this show, and we literally watch an episode every night. Shave your head first.
Shave my head.
Let's get you there in other ways. The exercise takes more time.
Okay, yeah. Mustache. Join law enforcement.
Yes, get a vest.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, if you wanna look like that, then you better quit running and start lifting weights.
Yeah. Okay. So, and in all seriousness, I would literally rather suffer in the 100-degree heat, risk heat exhaustion, than lift weights, because I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I just don't. And for some reason, I think I've internalized cardio health with, well, if I give up the running, then my heart's not going to be as healthy. And I know I'm wrong about that to some degree.
Well, you don't have to give up running, but it's okay for you to prefer that. It's okay, other than sunscreen.
Yep.
It's okay for you to, do all those things. But if your goals aren't being met, you just need to kind of have a conversation with yourself about whether or not you want to change your goals or whether or not you want to change your practice towards getting to those goals, because what you're doing is not going to get you to your goal at this point. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing, I don't think.
Sure.
But it's helping your heart health. And I think you probably know, if you're looking into it this much, you know that longevity has a lot to do with resistance training. It's not that running is bad. It's that you really need to start looking at resistance training for things like brain health, body health, overall.
The more rabbit holes I fall down, the more I'm starting to realize. And the whole thing about, bone density or muscle loss or both?
Right, yes.
By the time you're 30 and that ship has sailed?
Listen. You're never too old, right? I mean, I don't think that's a thing. But I think also you have to ask yourself, if you are measuring, what your measuring stick is. I find a lot of people measure sickness and not a lot of people measure wellness. Now, don't get me wrong. We see that.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is what's wrong. Well, as far as I can tell, nothing's wrong.
Gotcha.
I don't know that you're not meeting every goals. I don't know what your blood work looks like. I don't know what your blood pressure
donuts.
is. Right.
And pizza, no.
There's a lot more to the equation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on what your goals are. But absolutely, resistance training, it's a key component in longevity and in brain health and, like you said, bone density, muscle mass loss. There's a lot that goes into that. But there is no point at your life that you cannot make progress once you decide. Even
if you are, let's say, in your late 50s, early 60s, severely out of shape, and haven't worked out, haven't done much of anything outside of an occasional walk, and the diet is less than stellar. And by less than stellar, we're talking about donuts and pizza and soda, not so much water.
So terrible, not just less than stellar,
right.
But terrible, right?
Yeah, terrible.
Right.
So even for those people, if they decide to get it together,
I would argue even more likely in those people that they would see change.
Really?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so they would stand a better chance than even me, who's like kind of plateaued, I guess.
Yeah, not that they stand a better chance of reaching the same goal that you would have,
Sure.
but they stand a better chance of having instant progress, right? Because there's so many factors that weigh into total health or total wellness that they've got so much to work on.
Yeah.
That those people excite me from the standpoint that we could almost do anything and make progress. So, and you know how, when you get to a certain point, we all have a different version of that, but where you kind of feel helpless, hopeless, like, am I ever going to figure this out? Those people will figure there's so much more to do. Mm-hmm. And so they can make progress quickly. Whereas if you truly, like for you, you're exercising regularly, but you've hit this, you said plateau, you've got more problem solving to do. And there's going to be very specific things that you need to do. And it's essentially what you started with, right? Was I know what to do and I'm not doing it. That's the hard part about getting fit is you have to work harder.
Right.
Because you're already doing a lot of things well.
Yeah.
So it becomes more niche.
So the words are the words I hear a lot are lift heavy. And lifting heavy doesn't necessarily like I don't mind it. I do have a heavy. It's 40 pounds. It's a kettlebell.
Oh, sure.
But I worry about my back. So
you should.
So and so from the perspective of somebody who's got some back pain, played some high school sports, got injured, so the knee's not exactly up to par,
right?
And so there's some internalized concern about body function, and so I know I'm not a special snowflake from that regard,
sure,
right? So for somebody who is a little bit delicate, a little precious about that. Like what is some tactical advice?
I mean, listen, you're smart in terms of your approach.
She called me smart.
I don't know everything yet, but you're smart. That's your approach about your wellness because, the exact reason you are. There's no reason to go in and get hurt. There's no reason to go sling around a 40-pound kettlebell if you're not sure.
Yeah.
Don't do that, right? It doesn't mean you can't do anything with it that's productive, but I know you say lift heavy, that's all relative. I mean, what is heavy for you, right? And in what movement is that heavy? So there's no 1 pound, there's no one weight, there's no one approach. I would say in general, like what we like to do or how I coach is using a periodization model. So we start you out by figuring out where are you and what is happening. And, I don't know if you're tracking anything other than saying you're right or wrong or bad or good, but understanding what is your baseline? Where do you start? And then we can build around that. And then you work on strength, and then you work on endurance, and then you work on power, you work on balance, and then you go reassess and say, let's go back to that baseline assessment from the beginning and figure out what progress has looked like, and then build again. And so throughout that cycle, you figure that out. But, lift heavy that's still a relative term. And I think it's a little dangerous, right? I am not competitive in nature at all. My husband is extremely competitive. So if you tell me to lift heavy, my approach to that is going to be very different than his, right?
Gotcha.
He may think lift as much as I can, and I'm going to think lift as little as possible until I meet resistance and then figure it out from there.
Gotcha. Okay, because I can see myself trying to graduate to maybe, I don't know, a 60-pound kettlebell or something a little heavier, maybe not quite triple digits yet. I'm a fan of doing the sort of bench presses on the floor with the 40 pound and just repping out for 3 or 4 sets. And I like it. And I've kind of seen some results. I don't have, I'm not as flabby, not as jingly. That's your goal. Great. And that's the goal, right? I can run without a shirt on and around the neighborhood and not feel like,
Right. You're embarrassed to be out there.
like Stay Puffed,
Right.
So that's the sort of goal is to just kind of firm up, build some functional strength. I like to carry all my groceries to the car at once. It's a good, kind of metric. Carrying my dog if he gets, he's 10 years old. He's an old man. If he wants to stop running, he's almost 50 pounds. Oh. I like being able to carry him.
That's so nice of you.
Down the block if he decides to get lazy,
Right. I do that too when my dog's 5 pounds. Sounds like you're competitive.
But it's just I want to be able to do stuff and not and not hurt myself, and also feel like if in the age of toxic masculinity, I want to be able to feel like a man and be able to do something like that. Like I can't carry my dog down the block.
Right. Well, sure. Right. Yeah. And again, this is all specific to what your goals are. And I think what I hear you saying is you're trying to make progress with what you know, and you're just not sure because you're kind of limited on what your experience is with this kind of thing. So, I mean, I think what you're doing makes sense in terms of if you have a 40-pound kettlebell and you want to use 60, just remember that is 50% more. 50% of 40.
Don't make me math this late in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm actually really bad at it too. But that's a really big jump, right? So I think maybe what would be helpful to you is understand what progression looks like in exercise. And then, I mean, of course, you just gave me an example of one exercise, but it doesn't need to be complicated, but you want it to be progressive. That's the goal, right? Is to make progress, but also figuring out what are your options and how do you progress so that you're not kind of always on the same plan? Because if you're repping out, right, eventually that's going to be easy. So then what? Do you just get something heavier and rep out again? That's still going to be progress, right? You're not in the middle of a big program or anything, but you're still making progress. And if you're happy with it,
why not?
Yeah, I mean, keep it up. I don't know what that looks like for the rest of your body if you're only doing a chest press, but I'm sure you're not. So I think maybe just understanding progress. Like I said, for us, I coach and train in phases. That's how we train our staff, is making sure that everybody's always aware that they are in a progressive part of a plan that is not always focused on one thing. Sometimes it's endurance, sometimes it's strength or power, whatever we're working on, but we move through that over and over. I mean, people have been with us 20 years and they're still somewhere in that, right?
What do you think of functional training exercises like a farmer's carry?
Resistance is resistance is resistance. So as long as what you are doing is biomechanically sound, I don't think the movement matters a lot. I mean, you're going to, again, this is all about not knowing exactly, but injuries, all those things that sometimes functional things can be dangerous because you're trying to do multiple movement patterns with resistance. And if you don't know your body well enough to do those, it's very easy to injure yourself. Like, this is sort of an old school reference, but people used to wear those ankle weights. I don't think there's a lot of that anymore, but or the wrist weights, and that is just tugging at the joints over and over. So, but if they just stood still and lifted the same weight, it'd be fine. So I think functional movement is great. I think it's just understanding what you're doing, because that tends to be multiple movement patterns in one exercise. But there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I tend to do some of that during some phase of how, our program, but in the beginning, we break it down. So we're looking at individual muscle groups and how they work, and then we're looking at how does your body work within its posterior chain and everything that's working inside. So we know, okay, we can advance because those functional movements are how people get hurt a lot, right? They're just living their life and they step off the curb, or they sneeze and their back goes out, or. Oh
my God. That has happened.
My husband was down 3 days last week.
Scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it was terrifying.
A sneeze.
It happens. I mean, it happens, like I said, stepping off a curb, getting your groceries, reaching down to get the laundry. I mean, it's those things. So I think that functional movement does matter. And for some people more than others, as we see it with our older adults, they want to do, their mindset is more on their function, right? I need to be able to get the groceries out of the car. I need to be able to get on the floor and play with my grandkids, make it up the stairs, to go to Europe, whatever these things are. They're thinking about how they apply that, which is beautiful, right? But it doesn't mean that we're doing something so different for them in the gym than we are for someone who just, wants to lose weight for their high school reunion.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So for somebody who is in their 60s, 70s, dare I say 80s, 90s maybe
absolutely,
even,
absolutely.
So would regular exercises, just stationary exercises, be better for them as opposed to functional? Or because you're in such a controlled environment at your gym that they can do functional exercises and they don't have to worry about a crack in the cement or something? Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Age is not how we determine what someone's exercise is, right? We all have the same body parts. Yeah. So your bicep is the same as my bicep. I always say the only body parts that are different, we don't work at the gym, so we don't have to worry about that. So it's the same thing with age. We don't build a program for someone based on their age. Do we take into account? Of course, just like we do every other factor of their profile, right? Do you have heart conditions? Do you have one leg? I mean, there's a lot that goes on in people, right?
True.
So, we don't use that as a guide, but absolutely, you're going to be more safe in a controlled environment, of course, and so that helps. But they go through the same version, their own version, but of the same program that we do with everybody else. So sure, some of it's focus movement, some of it's functional movement.
What about middle-aged women? So I'm a middle-aged guy, middle-aged woman, wants to, maybe feels like I should be doing more. Moderate exercise already. What can they start with? Is it just as easy as a walk around the block, or just pick up a 5-pound weight, or a 10-pound, or a 20-pound, or whatever?
Yeah, again, there's no one weight, right? And I would say for somebody starting out, and we would encourage this for everybody, is if you're not, something that can be measured can be improved, right? So if you don't have to go work with somebody to do that, you can wear a tracker. You can understand what you're doing already. You know how far you can run, right? You know how long you can run. You know how fast you can run. That's great input for you to know how to start building on that. Just like you said, I have a 40-pound kettlebell. Okay, great. So you know what progression looks like because you're already thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the same for anybody. You have to really understand where you are to understand how to progress from that. And so a lot of our conversations, if somebody's not coming into the gym, then we need to be coaching that out of the gym. Where are you? Where, what is your level of activity? For some people, that's counting steps because maybe they sit at a desk. For some people like you, that's running, but I want more. What does that look like? And some people who do exercise will max out on whether it's time or interest. Like, I just don't want to run more than 3 miles. But it's pretty easy for me to do that. So we see that too, like this plateau scenario where what does that mean? What am I supposed to do with this? Did I quit? No. But what else can I add or adapt to or change about what I am doing so I continue to progress?
Do you find progression with your clients being easier when it's a sort of like a team environment, like they're cohorts with each other, or like someone by themselves?
It's different. For us, we don't have like a class setting. I myself go to classes. I like that because I don't want to think about what I need to do to work out. I'm not particularly there because I'm not trying to build relationships with people there, but I do like that there are people. Right?
Yeah.
I'm fine working out on my own too. So I think it can go both ways because we really only do one-on-one or one. We do have some people that have train with their friend or their spouse or something, but I think that's dependent on the person. And some people just don't feel that comfortable being in a group, right? Or feel like they're being seen. So, when you're in a one-on-one situation, it's a lot that feels more comfortable for people, particularly if you have something specific that you want to work on or you have specific injury or health concern.
Yeah. What is your favorite all-time exercise? Like if someone said, Heather, you can only do this one exercise and we're going to shock you every time you try and do another one, a different one. Like what is that one?
Ooh. I don't know. I love lunges, which I know everybody hates those. So that's kind of funny. I know.
Bane of my existence.
I think it's because I'm flexible, so I don't have a whole lot of limitation. So it feels good to me. So I generally like any stretch and load exercise. Because of the efficiency. So it feels good to do it, even though it's hard. I'm one of those people.
She said lunges feel good.
But I'm flexible. I think some of what people hate is when they're inflexible. That's really uncomfortable.
That must be why I hate them.
Yeah,
I'm not flexible.
If that's a limitation for you, I can understand that. Also, there's an exercise called a lat pullover, which it's the same thing. It's a stretch and load.
Okay.
So you have
Show
to
me the
stretch on the movement.
Lat pullover.
So you're lying flat on your back and you're holding a dumbbell. So you're holding the head of the dumbbell and then it's extended towards you. So if I was laying down and then you keep your arms extended and your elbows straight and you lift all the way over till you're parallel and then come back. And neutral is just above your chest. But you're stretching from the lats. Big stretch in your tricep and lats, and it feels so good.
I've been doing those and didn't even know what they were called. All right.
That's that kettlebell, yeah.
I love, but you know what? Those have gotten me back into wanting to lift more because I actually don't mind it.
That, I always tell people, we will keep the exercises you love. You still have to do some that you don't love, and if you really hate it, don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I think is hard in coaching people, helping them understand. It's one thing to not want to go exercise, right? But it's another thing like, I just really don't like that exercise. I hate it. Well, let's take it out.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do that.
We're grown-ups here. You do what you want.
Right. There's a lot of ways to get this done, right? Almost infinite. So there's no reason to continue to do something that you hate.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So a couple of pieces of advice. I want to break this down into someone that's on the younger end and then someone who's in the middle age range. So top tip, like what do you, like if someone goes into your gym and then what is that one piece of advice? It could be fitness, it could be nutrition or whatever, just blanket generalization.
Oh, to think about that. Age generally wouldn't matter on this.
Okay.
I mean, again, what can be measured can be improved. So if you can figure out where you are, and generally that's going to be some kind of, even if you want to keep your own journal, whatever it is, it's the same if you go talk to our nutritionist, if you talk to our mindfulness coach, if you talk to our nurse practitioner. The number one thing is know where you are, and then you can start setting goals. If you don't know where you are, it's going to be hard for anybody to help you, right? That's the first part of any program or progress, is understanding that. But yeah, I don't think that's really specific to anybody else. I mean, or any particular population. And I think this probably goes without saying, but just in case it doesn't, if you have fitness goals and you have wellness goals, you cannot ignore your nutrition.
Seriously. I mean, okay, so are we talking one cheat day a week or one cheat day a month? When you say don't ignore your nutrition, because I know some people that go Goggins hard, and they're
That's a whole different thing. I love him. He's a super nice guy, but he's hardcore.
Yeah. So we're talking like once a month cheat day.
Again, know where you are. Right? Some people aren't where they want to be and they eat salad all the time. And some people aren't where they want to be and they eat Cheetos all the time. Or they are. I mean, if you want to start and you want to make progress, you've got to understand where you are. And so I think that's a big part of it. No diet. Diets are different for everybody. And people are affected uniquely by all kinds of things. So I think it's the same thing. If you're starting to work with a dietitian or a nutritionist, you got to keep a food journal, so start writing down and understanding what you eat, how often you move, how intense either one of those things are. And then a lot of it too is just your mindfulness around those things. Yeah. Some of us really avoid things, like you were just saying, for whatever reason, you have a block against resistance training. Why? Change your goals or change your plan.
There you go. Let's shift the conversation real quick because your story is fascinating.
Oh.
Went to school, PR, and now you own this gym. But it's not just a gym. Right. It's a gym with, you just glossed over a nurse practitioner?
Yes. We do a lot of medical fitness. So if you were to come in, it looks like a gym because it's a gym. But we do a lot of medical fitness, cardiac rehab. We have a veteran wellness program. We really have a holistic approach. But there's plenty of people there that just come and work with their trainer. But yeah, it sounds different because it is different. But we like to have approachable experts in-house. That I think what was always important to me, I grew up in a family with a lot of doctors. And now we have just every version of that, whether it's a doctor, a dentist, we have a pharmacist, somebody who teaches medical terminology, just being around that all the time. And when I started training at 19, I realized that they had a lot of questions about what I was doing. That made no sense to me.
Because they're doctors, you would think, right?
Yeah, and they're brilliant, and they're caring, and they're wonderful.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, how do you not know about nutrition? And I think it's a lot more common that people understand that's just not what they do. They treat sickness. So, they don't treat it with nutrition. What we come to learn is a huge part of it. So I think when I bought the gym, it had already been there a while, bought it from the existing owner who was amazing. And I just thought, how do I want to shift this? I want people that come here. It was already so tailored to what the people there wanted and needed, and very concierge style when it came to training. But everybody still had to go somewhere else to get more information about care. Well, as trainers, we work with people multiple days a week. We spend more time with people in a one-on-one conversation than most people do with anyone else in their lives during the time that they're training, especially if they have kids. Now, of course, we all have spouses and stuff, but when do you sit one-on-one and just listen or just talk? And so what I found is that we are resources for them, whether we want to be or not, or think of ourselves as that or not. We are a trusted source for that information. So I thought we really need to build around this and make it so that people don't have to work so hard to chase down their own wellness. And so we built that. So I added over the years, I've added our functional nutritionist, our nurse practitioner. We have a medical director that's a cardiologist, and of course trainers. We have PT, a cardiac exercise physiologist, just mindfulness coach, really wanting people to have what they need when they have those questions. And if we don't have it, we're we're going to know where to send somebody.
What did you recommend to your doctor family to eat when they were asking you, like, what do we have? Go to Wendy's and have a salad? What was that combo like?
Yeah, well, the conversation that I had at first was with my uncle, who's a pediatrician. And of course, at 19, he was still my pediatrician, And it was just a casual conversation, I think, or at a family wedding. And his wife actually was asking about, I see that you're not eating the biscuits, Anyway, and that kind of led to this other conversation. But at the time, I probably didn't say anything other than, what? I don't know. But I mean, they don't come and talk to me about everybody asks for advice about things, but it's not like they're my clients,
Oh, yeah, I understand.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting to learn that at such a young age. And now that I'm 47 and looking back at that, like, I really building something around that is so rewarding.
It gave you an origin story. Really, when you think about it.
And who knew, right?
Yeah.
When you're living, I always say, if your life was a book, you would know what's coming because you would see all that foreshadowing. But when you're living it, you don't know. You don't know where you're headed. You're in it, and maybe other people see it or they don't. But I always think, if I was reading this book, I would know that I was going to end up here.
It's like that one Steve Jobs quote, like, or maybe not a quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but he's like, whatever happened in the past is, you can, I guess, backtrack or...
Yes, absolutely.
Now I'm butchering what he said, but it was something to what you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's reasons that we remember things, right?
Yeah.
So we forget most of what happens to us, but there's reasons, right? And so you think like, oh, these are little plot points on my timeline.
Little nuggets.
Right. And so if that's what would make the book, thus I would know this was coming.
That's awesome. So it's Village Gym.
The Village's Gym.
The Village's Gym is in the Memorial area. Yes. And how can people get connected with Heather and the team? Yes,
they can email us at manager@thevillagesgym.com, which villages is plural. They can call us 832-649-3902. Email's probably the easiest way, and we're pretty fast over there. And our website, thevillagesgym.com, has most of the information that anybody would ever want.
Contact Heather and the team. Chase them gains.
Yes, we will help you. Whatever that is, whatever age. We may even make you buy more than one 40-pound kettlebell.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much. I love being here.